It all started with an email from the HOA, cold, impersonal message announcing a new rule. Effective immediately, all residents must obtain prior approval for visitors staying longer than 2 hours. Failure to comply will result in fines and possible revocation of community privileges. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Since when did the HOA control who could visit my house? This wasn't a gated community, and my family had lived here for years without any issues. I decided to check the community forum to see if anyone else was talking about it. That's when I realized the real problem. The rule wasn't being enforced equally. Some neighbors openly admitted they had guests over all the time, yet they hadn't received any warnings. Others dismissed the email, saying the HOA never actually enforced these ridiculous rules. But then a few messages caught my eye. Several families, including mine, had been specifically warned about the new rule. Something was off, and I was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But then the HOA warnings started piling up, specifically against my family. First warning, my parents came over for dinner. The next day, I received an email stating that I had violated the visitor policy. Second warning, my sister stopped by to drop off some groceries. Another violation notice appeared in my inbox. Third warning, my uncle visited for the weekend. This time, I received a fine of $500. Meanwhile, my next-door neighbor had a huge birthday party with dozens of guests, music blasting late into the night. Did they get a violation? Not a single one. I decided to confront Karen, the HOA president. She was the self-proclaimed guardian of the community, a woman who had nothing better to do than enforce ridiculous rules. When I asked why my family was being singled out, she gave a fake plastic smile and said, "We have to maintain order. Some residents attract too much traffic. It's a quality of life issue." Quality of life? For who? That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. And Karen had just picked a fight with the wrong family. I told my father everything, every fine, every warning, and Karen's smug little speech about maintaining order. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. My father wasn't just any man. He was a respected judge with decades of experience. He had spent his career upholding justice, exposing corruption, and ensuring that no one abused their power. And now his own family was being targeted. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and finally spoke. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "So they think they can ban a man's family from his own home?" I could already tell Karen had just made a massive mistake. My father wasted no time. He asked me to gather every letter, notice, and fine I had received from the HOA. He wanted proof, solid evidence of their overreach. As we went through the documents, something became crystal clear. The HOA was breaking the law. They had no legal right to ban family members from visiting. Their fines were arbitrary and not properly documented. Their rules were selectively enforced. Other homeowners had guests over all the time. My father's expression darkened as he flipped through the pages. They think they're above the law? Let's see how they like facing an actual judge. And just like that, we had a plan. Step 1. File an official complaint against the HOA. Step 2. Demand a legal review of their authority. Step 3. If they didn't back down, escalate the matter to court. Karen had started this war, but she had no idea who she was up against. The moment the HOA received my father's official complaint, chaos erupted. Karen, the HOA president, called an emergency meeting to discuss a resident's outrageous attempt to challenge our rules. She was furious, but also scared. Instead of backing down, she doubled down. The HOA sent me a final warning: comply or face legal consequences. They threatened to escalate the situation, claiming they had powerful legal backing. Karen even tried to turn my neighbors against me, spreading lies that my guests were a disturbance to the community. But Karen didn't know one thing. My father wasn't just filing complaints, he was gathering evidence. He found HOA funds being misused. He discovered other homeowners had been bullied with illegal fines. He compiled a full case of HOA corruption, one that could take down the entire board. Karen thought she had power. She didn't realize she was walking straight into a legal disaster. The day of the hearing finally arrived, and the HOA board, led by Karen, showed up smug and confident. They expected an easy win, assuming I was just another homeowner with no real power. Karen even smirked at me as she walked into the courtroom, whispering, "You should have just followed the rules." But her confidence shattered the moment my father walked in. The judge. Karen's face went pale. She stammered, What is he doing here?" My father didn't just sit in the audience. He sat on the judge's bench. The HOA's lawyer immediately started sweating. Karen tried to object, claiming a conflict of interest, but my father wasn't the one ruling on the case. Another judge was. Then the evidence came out. Financial fraud within the HOA. Unlawful restrictions placed on multiple homeowners. A pattern of abuse and discrimination. The courtroom was dead silent as the judge read the violations out loud. Karen realized too late this wasn't just about my family visiting. This was an investigation that could take down the entire HOA. The courtroom was silent, the tension thick as the judge delivered the verdict. The HOA's actions were unlawful, discriminatory, and in direct violation of property rights. Karen's smug expression had completely vanished. The HOA was ordered to revoke the ban immediately. They were fined thousands of dollars for wrongful enforcement. Worse, an audit was launched into the HOA's finances. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear. But it got worse for her. My father, still seated as a respected federal judge, made it clear the county would not tolerate HOA abuses. He called for a full legal review of all HOA regulations in the county. Several board members resigned on the spot. Karen? She sat there speechless, trembling, realizing her power was slipping away. And then came the final blow. Karen thought the worst was over. She was wrong. My father wasn't just ending the HOA's reign of terror. He was erasing it completely. As a federal judge, he had connections at the state level and knew how to expose corruption. Within days of the trial, a full-blown investigation into the HOA's finances began. County officials uncovered years of fraudulent fees, misuse of funds, and illegal property restrictions. Homeowners came forward with horror stories about harassment and unlawful fines. Then came the bombshell ruling. The county revoked the HOA's authority entirely. The HOA was officially dissolved. Their power to enforce rules and collect fees? Gone. All properties were placed under standard county regulations, freeing everyone from Karen's iron grip. Karen's legacy? A disgraced HOA leader, shunned by the very neighborhood she tried to control.